The forces that unite us are intrinsic and greater than the superimposed influences that keep us apart. Kwame Nkrumah. Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Makeda Zulu, and I'm the Executive Director of the University of Minnesota Robert J. Jones Urban Research, Outreach, and Engagement Center. It's my honor to introduce a very special UROC critical conversation, The Art of Transformation, We Thrive Together. This event marks the 10th anniversary celebration of UROC. Actually, it's UROC's 11th year. And if you count when we actually opened the doors, it would be 12. But due to the pandemic, who's counting? I am so proud to be a part of this amazing place, affectionately known as UROC. UROC is the only top-tier urban-focused, place-based research center in the country, and one that has been steadily growing in reach and impact since opening its doors a decade ago. Today, UROC has more than 60 distinguished university faculty affiliates working on more than 60 scholarly projects involving nearly 300 community partners. Our reach is ever increasing, due in large part to hard work and the creativity and drive of the people featured in today's event. Before we introduce our guest of honor and moderator of today's event, I want to introduce a message from two very special guests who are joining us via video. University of Minnesota President Joan T.A. Gabel and U.S. Senator for Minnesota, Tina Smith. These women represent a very best part of leadership, strength, and grace under pressure, and resiliency, many of the qualities we are honoring here today.
Hello, I'm Joan Gabel, President of the University of Minnesota. Today's event, The Art of Transformation, We Thrive Together, a UROC critical conversation, celebrates UROC and 10 years of transformative university community engaged partnerships in action in North Minneapolis and beyond. My friend, Chancellor Jones, will introduce you to 5 UROC projects that have demonstrated exceptional creativity and resilience in growing their reach over the past year. And these projects represent how UROC is a shining example of the best of university creativity and resilience at work. Community engagement is a key commitment in the university's new system-wide strategic plan, MPACT 2025, and the leadership of UROC shows how we can move forward more, better, and together. We're measuring and expanding our service and engagement across the state and around the world. In fact, a recent survey of UROC's affiliated researchers showed that in the last year, UROC's signature and affiliated projects have reached almost 10,000 community members in North Minneapolis and neighboring communities. The expansion in UROC's community engaged research and service and the growth of its partnership network is actually an unexpected benefit of the pandemic. It's due in large part to university researchers and their community partners' willingness to quickly pivot to virtual platforms and new ways of connecting. We will keep that growth and transformation going as UROC helps us blaze new trails in the way the university works with and for our communities. Thank you for all that you do, and congratulations on 10 amazing years and many more to come.
Hi, it's U.S. Senator Tina Smith, and I'm honored to help you celebrate your 10th anniversary today. In my work in community organizing and politics, I've seen so many times that those of you closest to the work know best what your community needs. The Urban Research and Outreach Engagement Center is a perfect example of this value in theory and in practice. Over the last decade, you've built bridges between the University of Minnesota and North Minneapolis that have created lasting change. From connecting residents to jobs and economic opportunity, to conducting research on disparities in education, economic development, and health, you're community builders. Over the last year, your work has become even more crucial as Minneapolis experienced the layered traumas of the murder of George Floyd and COVID-19. And we all know that we have a lot of work to do to root out systemic racism and the epidemic of violence that is killing Black, Brown, and Indigenous people. I'm committed to doing this work with you and following your leadership. Congratulations on this important anniversary, and I'm grateful for you and look forward to seeing you all in person soon.
Hello, my name is Andy Furco. I'm Associate Vice President for Public Engagement at the University of Minnesota, where I manage the university's Office for Public Engagement, which serves as UROC's parent office. I'm proud to be part of the university's efforts to build a more engaged university, one that is built on reciprocal, mutually beneficial partnerships and engagement. This agenda is a bold initiative, which, as President Gabel mentioned, continues under her leadership throughout the university system. First adopted by the university's Board of Regents in 2006, this agenda aims to deepen the connections between the university's academic resources with the varied expertise and the many assets that reside within our communities, all to tackle together some of the toughest challenges in our city, state, and beyond. As the first urban-focused and only place-based academic research center in the country, UROC is a true jewel in this critical partnership work. Since opening its doors, UROC has grown in impact and importance to the university, as well as in the Northside community. UROC continues to serve as a model of how mutually beneficial partnerships built on respect and trust can transform the ways that universities and communities work together. But don't take my word for it. UROC was recently named the 2021 North Central Regional winner of the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities W.K. Kellogg Foundation Community Engagement Scholarship Award. This national award recognizes 4 public universities, one from each region of the country, for outstanding and exemplary university community engagement that has demonstrable community impact and has enhanced learning and discovery by becoming more integrated with communities. UROC's achievement marks the first time the University of Minnesota has been selected for this prestigious award. This recognition is a testament to UROC's groundbreaking work and the quality of its partnerships, its programs, and its outstanding staff. I now have the honor of introducing a person whose commitment to the university's Northside neighborhood and whose vision of a new kind of university community engagement made the idea of UROC a reality a little more than 10 years ago. Robert J. Jones is Chancellor of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, Illinois' flagship public university and one of the most prestigious research universities in the world. Prior to taking on that role, he served as president of the University at Albany, which is part of the State University of New York system. Robert began his academic career at the University of Minnesota in 1978, where he quickly became an internationally respected authority on plant physiology. Throughout his distinguished 34-year career in Minnesota, Robert assumed increasingly demanding leadership roles, culminating in his position as Senior Vice President for System Academic Administration. At Minnesota, Robert had system-wide administrative and budgetary oversight for many key offices at the university, and it was his vision that established the university's agenda to build a more engaged university. As he has done throughout his illustrative career, Robert continues to champion equity and diversity, affordability and access, and the fostering of world-class scholarship that results in positive community impact. Among his many achievements, Robert is best remembered by many at this event as being the driving force behind the creation of UROC. And therefore, it is most fitting that UROC now bears his name and is officially the Robert J. Jones Urban Research and Outreach Engagement Center. Robert, your legacy at the University of Minnesota lives on. It is felt across the university and particularly felt here at UROC. Robert, please take it away.
Well, first of all, let me start by saying thank you to Executive Director Makeda Zulu Gillespie for inviting me to participate in this 10 or 11 or 12-year celebration. I think UROC is very comparable to the Big Ten that has 14 institutions. We're not very good at math, apparently. But I can tell you, it is my great pleasure to be with you today. And I certainly would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge my longtime friend and colleague, Andy Furco. Thank you for that exceedingly generous introduction. That is probably longer than the comments that I'm going to make, but is greatly appreciated, Andy. And really thank you for being a person that brought the big vision that we started to create more than 2 decades ago, that the University of Minnesota need to be an engaged university. And thank you for bringing that big vision to fruition. And I still will attest to the fact that you are among the best hires that I made across my 34.5-year career at the University of Minnesota. And certainly would be remiss if I didn't thank my good friend, President Gabel, for her very kind words and for echoing the enthusiasm and the support of celebrating UROC in its first decade. And I also might add that one of the things I'm extremely proud of is that UROC has enjoyed the ongoing support now across 3 different university chief executive officers or presidents. And I can tell you, I think we all would agree that that consistency is also absolutely critical for its ongoing success. I just want to comment just briefly on, again, how proud I am of UROC and just provide a bit of context of the role that we played in bringing this big idea to fruition. And we are still very much excited and very proud of the fact that UROC is unique and there's not any other place-based strategy quite like it anywhere in the world, particularly I would say in the US. And so it really was a point of departure for the University of Minnesota. And the way that we talked about it some 10, 12 years ago, that it was going to be business as unusual, not business as usual. That we were no longer going to be party to the notion that we go into communities and thinking that we know everything. And we say that we're from the University of Minnesota and we're from here to help. We decided to turn that pyramid on its head and create a new structure where we were partners with the community to do the very difficult work of finding solutions to complex challenges in our community. We didn't have to create a new model. We decided to leverage the research and outreach model that already exists across the state of Minnesota. Thank you all know we have research and outreach centers in every geographical region. But it dawned on us one day, well, we have this urban agenda, but you don't have a way of systematically reaching out to those community members to find these solutions. So in keeping with the land grant mission, we established the first urban research outreach and engagement center in the world. And I can tell you, it is the contemporary embodiment of the land grant mission in these difficult times in which we live. So I could not be more proud of how UROC has advanced over the years, and extremely proud to see a person that was the assistant director being elevated to the awesome task of being the director. Makeda, congratulations on your leadership. I think you must be in your 2nd year now, if I'm doing my math correctly. And I tell you, I could not be more proud of the amazing job that you are doing to continue to drive the community engagement piece. At the same time, fundamentally understand that UROC, just like the rest of the university, has to be data-driven. It has to be the research engine that finds solutions along with the partnerships that transforms our community. So just want to thank you, Makeda, for your leadership and your continued involvement in creating this model and leveraging it for the benefit of the state of Minnesota, and I think the nation and the world. I do believe that models like UROC are our best opportunity to transform communities and for the university to be a critical stakeholder in working with communities to find those solutions. And as was said earlier, I think we're at a critical juncture where universities have to be around the table to rebuild, to heal, and to eradicate disparities and social injustice in our society. Otherwise, we become part of the problem rather than being part of the solution. You know, while my wife and I may no longer live in the state of Minnesota, and I guess we can't call ourselves residents, and we sold both of our houses in 2018, but I can tell you at both of our hearts, Lynn was born and raised there. And when people ask me where I'm from, even though I wasn't born there, I tell them that I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota, because that's the place that has helped shape and home where the path that I've been on now for almost 43 years. And I could not be more proud of what UROC has done in the last decade. Very excited about the role that UROC will play in ending systemic racism and injustice in the aftermath of what occurred in my hometown over the last year or so. And just very excited to hear the presenters today and to learn more specific details about the projects that have defined UROC over recent years, and as we contemplate a very exciting future. So with that, thank you very much. I'm sorry if I went on a bit long, but Makeda, that's what happens when you name a building after a guy who learned from the greatest about how to make a short statement long. So I apologize for that, but I would like to now open with the presentations. And I believe that it's time to hear from my featured guests about their experiences and their perspective on the challenges and the opportunities that actually we face together. You've already heard, these projects were specifically chosen because they're leaders and they're very much exemplary and demonstrating, I think, the innovation, the resilience, and the creativity in growing their organizations and their community-based initiative over the years in close collaboration with UROC. So we're so pleased to have joining us today 6 panelists to offer presentations. And I'm going to just very briefly introduce the panelists, their subject matter that they'll be presenting today. And then in a single block, we will be hearing from each of these presenters. We're very, very pleased to have with us a very well-known, highly regarded financial educator, Tanya Brinston, who has been part of I think the Twin Cities community a very long time. And her presentation would be in conjunction with University College of Education and Human Development Professor Chalandra Bryant, presenting on the link between historical trauma, ambiguous loss, and financial decision-making among African-American families in North Minneapolis. And of course, someone that I'm very glad to see again, Brett Buckner from onemn.org will be speaking about the development of Seeds to Harvest, a community-based service organization dedicated to responding to the effects of COVID-19 pandemic and the civic unrest in North Minneapolis. And then Sim LaFleur, Senior Program Manager for the University Technology Empowerment Center, will be speaking about the work of TEC, Free Workforce Development Program and Computer Refurbishing Program. And for the benefit of our guests and folks not familiar with UROC, this program, this Computer Refurbishing Program, was one of the first anchor programs when we created UROC some 12 years ago. So I'm glad to be able to get an update on where it stands today. And then, of course, the University of Minnesota School of Nursing Associate Professor Siobhan McMahon will present on Ready State, a research program that investigates the best ways to avoid injuries from falling through strength building and balanced exercises with community partners. And then, of course, last but not least, Dr. Renee Cunningham, Vice Chair of Health Equity at Boston University Department of Family Medicine, will present on The Ladder, a North Minneapolis-based club cascading mentorship program that builds interest in health care careers. So again, welcome to all of you, and thank you for sharing your experiences and your expertise and your advice with all of us today at UROC. And I am certainly excited and looking forward to this conversation. So with that, I think we are ready to begin. So again, thank you all for being with us.
Am I in queue?
I think so, Tanya.
All righty then. Thank you for that introduction. I am honored to be a part of this whole conversation. Our project is titled Voices of the Future, Linking Historical Trauma, Ambiguous Loss, and Financial Decision-Making Among African-American Families. Our team includes Dr. Chalandra Bryant, Professor Sharon Powell, and Professor Joyce Cerrito, and Mary Jo, Mary Jo Catrace, which is the program leader in the University of Minnesota Extension Center for Center for Family and Development. Our team also includes a community-led advisory group, and that group consists of key community members working in organizations serving families on the North Side. And our project, the overview of our project is the purpose is to improve individual, family, and community financial well-being by addressing historical trauma experienced by African Americans and explore how that trauma hinders financial decision-making. And so we aim to minimize shame and stigma associated with personal debt, provide program participants with resources necessary to achieve financial capability, and develop capacity, sustainability within the community to continue this program beyond the life of the grant. African Americans account for 13% of the US population and significantly impact the economy with 1.2 trillion in purchases annually. And there's a myth working to convince the poor that they are poor because of high consumerism, lack of work ethics and financial knowledge. The myth shifts blame from those who create these deficiencies onto those who suffer from them. There are systems in place that have created financial disparities, wealth gaps, and historical trauma. So our work is guided by this question: does community-based, trauma-informed financial education improve the financial well-being of African American families? By providing education about and openly discussing the social, physical, and financial traumas experienced by African Americans, we will alleviate the shame of and self-blame for financial stagnation. That will in turn relieve stress, which we hypothesize will improve their ability to make better decisions, as stress negatively impacts cognitive abilities. That is a component one of the project. Component two involves providing financial education, which we hypothesize will also contribute to improved financial decision-making. But we will first address the trauma. And so we aim, again, to minimize the shame and the stigma associated with personal debt and give the participants, community members, the tools and the resources necessary to achieve financial capabilities. We are examining economic deprivation using a trauma-informed perspective, in which means exploring systemic barriers that have hindered the ability of African Americans to build wealth. We are also examining ambiguous loss. Ambiguous loss is a relational disorder, and there are two types of ambiguous loss. One type occurs when there is a psychological presence with a physical absence. In this case, a loved one is physically missing, such as divorce, adoption, and/or kidnapping. We are not focusing on that type. The other type, which is what we are focusing on, occurs when there is a physical presence with psychological absence. Typically, this has been explored within the context of, for example, Alzheimer's. Well, we are exploring ambiguous loss slightly differently. Anecdotally, we are aware that some parents, especially fathers, are psychologically withdrawing from their families due to feelings of shame and helplessness, giving their perceived inability to adequately protect and provide for their families. But we are examining economic deprivation and trauma through an ambiguous loss framework. Ambiguous loss has never been explored in this context. Our work is being conducted in North Minneapolis.
Good afternoon, and thank you, everybody. Dr. Jones, great to see you again. And to my partner in crime through this whole process, Makeda Zulu, thank you for inviting me, and to James as well. Our project was supposed to be a 1-year project. Excuse me, 1-week project. You're supposed to plant some trees, connect with some people, and try to bring some hope and some idea that we can get out of this situation that we were currently facing. This was 1 week before the murder of George Floyd and the change of our community. But we were faced with so much. We were faced with a community that was really questioning what was going to take place next. You know, from the pandemic to the economic strife and everything, we just had to find a way to get kids out and about, to have them understand that things were going to be okay. So for 1 week, we worked hard. We pulled together 10 organizations. We staged out of the UROC parking lot because of protocols. And we really focused on helping the community of what we could do, planting trees, connecting people to PPE and to food and whatever, understanding that there were some major gaps. And then George Floyd was murdered by a policeman of our city. And at that moment in time, we had to make a decision. Are we here for the long haul? Or are we just going to give up? So after talking and consulting with our partners, including Makeda and James and others, we had to really say, we're here for the long haul. So in just over a year, we pulled together 67 organizations to look at many aspects of our issues, our socioeconomic conditions, our civic engagement activities. We're working now with the gastrointestinal department at the University of Minnesota. We are partnered with the leadership cohort out of the leadership minor. We work directly with Dr. Sam Myers, the illustrious Sam Myers, out of the Wilkins Center. And of course, our anchor with the University Research and Opportunity Center. We are blessed with this opportunity to help reimagine what North Minneapolis can become out of this tragedy, because we're sustained by hope. So out of many organizations and many challenges, we have become one. So next slide, please. So as we are starting to coalesce around some key principles around America's Promise, as a former Promise Fellow in the first cohort, we decided to pull together our youth activity around the idea of creating safe places in this very desperate time. As you know, we have been challenged with that even as recent as the past couple of weeks. But to make sure that the kids feel that they are safe, that they have a trusted adult, that we are helping them develop their skills, helping them have a healthy start, and the opportunity to serve. So within that year plus, we've had 48 projects in 42 weeks. We've been able to reach over 15,000 people through multiple projects. We've been able to do some amazing things, such as create the inaugural futsal league, and also a study on the gut to try to help create a healthy and more sustainable lifestyle for our kids. So we are really excited that we have such a partner with UROC. We're extremely excited to have the organization named, the building named after such a great man. because again, he was a great partner to us with the African American Men Project and many other things within our communities. So we continue on and we'll continue to push on out of this hope and belief that we will make a better North Minneapolis and a better community. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sam Lafleur, and I manage the tech program over at UROC. The Technology Empowerment Center provide IT training opportunities to minority community members. And as you know, lack of computers access and training and IT experience at any age creates a challenge for economic development. This is why our office is dedicated to reduce significantly the growing inequality of access to technology among low-income families. Not only we provide them with a computer, but also we teach them how to use it in order to compete in the global workforce. We are living in the digital transformation era where many companies are going paperless. If you don't know how to use a computer, you may not even be able to pay your medical bills, pay your credit cards, and so on. So if you know how to operate a computer, you may not know how to protect your data. And that's why tech has been helping community members with those needs for the past 10 years. And we're so proud of the work that we have done in the community. When we compare the price that community college are charging for similar classes that we offer at tech and the retail value of computers that we donate to the community, we have invested more than $6.8 million into the community. And I'm honored and proud to be part of that work. As a Microsoft, Google, and Person View partner, I believe this work will continue until every individual, every household can access or use a computer at any time. And as a UFM graduate, when I came here, I was basically thinking about going to a corporate world. But when I get to UROC and I start working back in 2014, and I see the difference that program is making in the community. I used to teach an IT class, and there's that woman, a mother of 3 children. So when she was taking my class, she couldn't continue the class. When she called me, she told me, oh my gosh, I got a job on IT. I couldn't be more proud of myself because I feel that I'm making a difference. And I do believe this work will continue because it's needed, it's important in the community. If you want to learn more about our program or donate a computer or partner with us, because we still need more people on that work, you can visit our website at bced.umn.edu/tech, and you will find our contact there. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Siobhan McMahon, and I'll briefly discuss our community-based research project, its evolution through the COVID-19 pandemic, highlighted on the left of this screen, and the web of community partnerships, organizational resources, and policies that really helped us persevere, just highlighted on the right of the slide. As a quick background, this is a NIH-funded research project called Ready Steady, which addresses the interacting public health problems of falls and low physical activity levels in older adults. As you probably know, falls are the leading cause of accidental injuries and deaths among people over 70. And although there is solid evidence showing that regular physical activity, especially leg strengthening and balance challenging movements, combined with walking, are the most effective way to prevent falls, most people don't do those. So the objective of our project is to identify the best motivational strategies that we can use to help people incorporate these physical activities and movements into their everyday lives. Thus, in our study, we assess the effects of varied but common motivational strategies in approximately 310 people who live in Minneapolis and St. Paul neighborhoods and who volunteered to participate. The study centers around an 8-week course delivered in small groups in meetings that focus on mastering the proven exercises and just using various motivational strategies. By we, I mean our research team, including 4 other investigators, 6 research professionals, and many research assistants. Also, the supportive interconnected web I just mentioned. And for this project, that includes 8 community partners in Minneapolis and St. Paul, such as UROC, the University of Minnesota organizational structures, such as the School of Nursing, the IRB, and UMN-wide policies that guide our ability to conduct research responsibly. As I mentioned, the process cycle on this slide highlights basic changes in our work over the last 18 months. The green blocks in the cycle highlight our work going as planned before March 2020 and beginning again now recently in the spring of 2021, when we implemented the final portion of our Sunrise Plan from the pandemic. You can see most of the transformation involved over the year involved changing the location and the mode of communication and work with our research participants from in-person meetings, which were at community centers, to phone, mail, Zoom, and eventually some of our community partners outdoor spaces like UROC's parking lot. And finally, we are also back to some indoor spaces, as you can see. What's not shown here is the uncertainty we experienced and all the help we received from our web of support. Like everyone else, we were concerned about the well-being of our research participants, about the ability to continue our research. Looking back, we now realize what helped us was regular virtual communications, phone, Zoom huddles, everything, to explore and discuss what would be possible, how, and when. We also kept touch with, of course, the dynamic information provided through the Minnesota Department of Health, the NIH, UMN, and our community partners to just keep exploring what we could keep doing and how. Of course, we had to pause the small group meetings with older adults, but we slowly developed a progressive Sunrise Plan. For example, the Associate Dean for Research in Nursing and the IRB advocated for our community research to continue safely by providing us with protective equipment and supplies, new supportive policies and monitoring strategies that helped us develop the protocols we needed to be safe. You can see this new icon pops up somewhere along the cycle, halfway through our cycle, which represents a new study that was part of the COVID-19. It's related to investigating the impact of COVID-19 mitigation efforts on older adults' physical activity and well-being. We're just finishing that up now. In sum, we have thrived together through the last year. We've even brought some new work and ways of working into our project, which we will finish in the next year, we're happy to say, thanks to our strong and nimble web of support. Thank you.
Hello. My mute is just died. Anyway, special thanks, Makeda Zulu-Gillespie, who got us started. I'm Renee Critchlow, and I'm here to talk about a program that's been running out of UROC for about 9 years now, called The Ladder. Our motto is lift as you climb, build as you grow. And when they mentioned that we would only have 3 slides, I tried to figure out the best way we could demonstrate what the ladder is in 1 slide. And I think this really puts it right out. The young lady with the name badge on and the glasses and the green long sleeve shirt, that's one of our resident physicians. So she is a second year, at this time she was a second year resident. Dr. Minerva Nant. The person that's on the gurney is her patient, her continuity prenatal patient. The young lady at about 7 o'clock is 9 years old. The young woman at about 11 o'clock is an undergrad. And the young man standing up with the Minnesota t-shirt on is a pediatric resident at this point. The whole idea around the ladder is each one, teach one, lift as you climb, build as you grow, service learning, leadership training, and cascading mentorship. And what I really appreciate about this picture is that what we're trying to do is impact the workforce so that more Black and brown folks go into healthcare. And especially if we can get them into nursing, pharmacy, and medical school. If you look at that patient, she was a volunteer and she came because she trusted Dr. Nanton. And if you just look at the way their eyes connect, you can really see that trust. And that's the kind of thing that we want to help perpetuate in our community. We started this organization basically because one of our residencies, Broadway Family Medicine, is in North Minneapolis and has been serving that community for over 45 years. And we would always ask every kid, what do they want to be when they grow up? And we had so many kids who were like, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a doctor. And when, teaching at the medical school, I looked around, I didn't see a lot of Black and brown kids, especially from North Minneapolis. So we wanted to create a path that would help them get there. And we don't use the word pipeline because pipelines are leaky and expensive. What we were trying to build is a community of purpose. And our purpose was to help each other succeed and help each other grow and help each other learn. It's been 9 years now. Our very first meeting, we had like 20, 25 adults and like one kid showed up. One. His name was Christopher. The coolest thing about the UROC is that it has allowed us to maintain a consistent space in order to engage these children. Christopher's kept coming back. He's now 18 and he's now a sophomore in University of Minnesota and he still wants to be a doctor. Pediatric GI doc. So he might work with you, Brent, someday. So that one thing that we do is every second Saturday of the month, every second Saturday, it's at UROC. And we're in that big room. And we really appreciate the ability to have consistency because our kids that come often, they'll leave for 6 months, 8 months, a year. But they always know that second Saturday of the month, the ladder is at UROC. They always know they can get a meal and they can have people believe in them and they'll learn how to do things like, figure out that the belly button is 20 centimeters above the pelvic line and is also manages to measure out at 20 weeks. And that's why they think that the metric system is what God really wanted because Dr. Jones got it, okay. So the biggest thing is doing hands-on stuff. And it's amazing watching the younger kids. We started at 9 years old, middle school, high school, college, medical school, residents, physicians, community doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and everyone gathering together. And one of the biggest things we do is tell stories. When we sit down and have a meal, we talk about, we choose a quote, fall down 7 times, get up 8, might be one of them. And we like, I'm medical scholar Renee, and what fall down 7 times, get up 8 means to me is, bam. We're trying to teach resilience. We're trying to teach stories that say that it's okay to fall down, but we will get up, and you do better when you do it together. So we like to be called a community of purpose, and UROC has allowed us to succeed. We run on an incredibly small budget because we wanted to be able to stay lean so we could stay long. 9 years later, we're amazed at some of the successes we've had. Next slide. This is Dr. Vivian Liu. Dr. Vivian Liu started out as a second-year medical student in our program, The Ladder. She will routinely tell you that one of the reasons that she found value in medical school was coming to The Ladder and being a mentor for the younger kids and getting mentorship from the older kids. Dr. Vivian Liu went on to do a pediatric residency and a fellowship in pediatric emergency medicine And this last year, she came back and she's on faculty for the University of Minnesota. They'll tell you that it takes like $250,000 to recruit a doctor. We did it in 8 years and less than $20,000. But it was really about building that community. And it was about giving her a purpose and a path. It's what we do. Next slide. So the little kid on the far right, he's 9 years old. The kid in the middle, that's Christopher. He was 9 years old when he started with the ladder. Now he's in his sophomore year. And to his right, the gentleman in the striped shirt is Dr. Lonzel Ramsey. And Dr. Ramsey moved to Minnesota because of the ladder when he was becoming a resident. So he came as a resident physician largely because of the ladder. He stayed on, he's now a community doctor, and I hear he might even be looking to get a job at the U. But the ladder, it's what we do. It's the lift as you climb, build as you grow, and stay lean, stay long, and help each other. That's what we try to teach them. No one succeeds by themselves. And we all do better and we all do better. So really want to say thank you to the UROC for being an integral partner every second Saturday. Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Well, let me start by saying thank you all for those truly amazing presentations, because I certainly hope that this is beneficial for those that are participating in this virtual discussion. But as a longtime person that's been committed to UROC, I am very much fascinated and very, very proud of the work that has been going on in the last decade, and very, very grateful for the differences in the work that you are doing, but the commonality of engaging with communities. And I think that diversity of engagement across the university really exemplifies the comprehensive strategy and the approach and the reason for being. What you have talked about today is the absolute reason that we felt having a place-based strategy and one of the most underserved communities in the Twin City area was an absolute requirement. So just briefly, so from working from your presentations, what I like to do is to have an opportunity to dig a little bit deeper in some of the things you talked about. And I'd like to pose a couple of questions about your respective projects and what your experiences have been. So I have two basic questions in mind, and I'd like to pose them one at a time and ask each of you in turn to respond to those questions, because I'm really curious to hear what similarities emerge in your responses and what differences might also stand out to really help frame the comprehensive nature of the Urban Research Outreach and Engagement Center. So I'm going to start here with my first question. So would each of you please share with us how your project has transformed the traditional university community partnership model that I talked about in my opening comments? So how has your projects, your work in UROC, helped transform the traditional, I'm from the university and I'm here to help, to more of a community-based, reciprocal, respectful relationship, I guess, is to distill that a bit further. So I'm going to start in the order that your presentations were delivered. So starting with Tanya, and then Chalandra, and then of course moving to Brett and Sim and Siobhan, and then Renee. And then we'll do the reverse order on the second question. So Tanya, would you respond to that first question? How's your work transform or change the traditional model?
We are launching in July for our first workshop, and it will be a trauma-informed workshop. So we haven't been in position to measure that transformation just yet.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Chalandra, you want to comment, please?
Sure. One of the things that we're doing, it's this partnership approach to research. We're emphasizing this equitable involvement of the community members and academic researchers and other stakeholders. And for us, this is a philosophy that the researcher is not the only one holding the privileged knowledge or the power. And you know that this type of collaborative approach has increased over the years, and it's provided this really viable means of exploring inequities within a community, as well as actually promoting equity, because we're giving community members a voice. But we really do like this notion of different people hold different types of knowledge, and we're getting, just in terms of meeting with our community-led advisory groups, we're learning that there are these nuanced responses to certain questions that we're posing that researchers don't typically get at when they're just sending out these surveys with Likert scales and not actually trying to embed themselves within the community and ask, why are you engaged in this type of behavior? And just in our community-led advisory meetings, and Tanya did this phenomenal job of recruiting these community liaisons, we're learning that just during our discussions with one another, why certain behaviors are being observed. So we are eager to find out what we're actually going to find. And even Tanya, within her our first meeting, she said the community is tired of being researched. She said they want answers, they want help, they don't want to be researched. So that's what we're finding out right now. She's right, we haven't launched yet, but just within our meetings with the community members, this is what we've learned.
Thank you. And I can tell you, folks that were around 10 years ago will know we heard that every day, 7 days, 365 days when we started on this big idea. Nobody wants to be a guinea pig. So, but I'm certainly pleased to see that it's not that, it's much more. I think Brett is next.
I am, thank you. From our standpoint, it's been about posture and presence. So ours was a little bit more of a challenge because as we were trying to pull together our projects, of course, we couldn't use the building. So we had to be a little, unique, a little creative, using the parking lot and gathering the people there. Really forced us to not only really reimagine getting outside the walls, it forced us to get outside the walls. It was by necessity. And so it was great from that standpoint, because I think what the people saw, especially as you're going down Plymouth Avenue, very clearly that was the whole piece. But again, our relationships within the leadership cohort, and bringing those individuals into the process, to bring in the GI team from the medical school, that was a very unique process to be able to say, we have an idea, but we need to create partnerships that are, unique. And we were like, we are here to help because we have a lot of kids that are suffering from, and a lot of families that are suffering from these chronic issues that we know we can actually work with, and that we're not going to research on, we're going to learn from each other and move on from there. So that posture, that presence, and then again, just having willing partners to be able to say, I am not only of community, but I am from community. And again, so having people like Makeda and James is an invaluable asset for us as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. LeFou.
Yes, for tech, it's all about empowering. And for me personally, when I said in my presentation earlier, when I fall in love with that project or that UROC, it's time you have somebody from the community that's stepping in our office. And even though they come with the idea of getting a computer for free, but when they find out you have to take classes, we are empowering those people to get better, to do better, to move much farther in their lives, and using technology to make life easier for them. And that story I shared earlier can just summarize what I just want to tell you right now. So that woman, when she was taking classes, she was in my class. So sometimes she keep turning off her camera because she has to take care of the kids while she's taking the class, right? So when she called me and she was screaming, I couldn't even hear what she was telling me. And when I arrived to hear from her, she said, I just got a job. I said, what? She said, I got a job in IT. So that's mean to us. Now she's gonna be able to pay her kids a bill, her own bill and stuff like that. So we just changed someone's life. And I often tell people it's not really about numbers, it's the quality of impact that we make in the community. And I feel this tech is playing that role. And when I first started working over at tech, sometimes when I try to talk to some people in the community, they often say that the university is not a place for them. You know why they say that? They see when they see the university, they see higher education. Because I don't even have a GED. So why you are talking to me about a 4 years degree? So I have to be intentional about what tech has to offer. So I'm not gonna ask you to go take a computer programming class. I just want you to know how to use a computer so you can protect yourself, you can protect your data. Now it's about data. So if you go online, you enter to a website, you have to make sure that you don't enter your data to a fake website where people can steal your information. So I feel this tech is playing that bridge between the community. The community is the university, just to meet them where they are.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And I think next is Siobhan.
So this is a good question. And when you asked it, I thought back to when our research started. And at the beginning, we were very intentional to not bring our clinical ideas and what we thought would be the solution in for testing. So when we started the research, before we started the research, we worked in the community and met with potential partners just to get their ideas about what are their thoughts about the problem of falls. And just for example, what we discovered then is, people didn't necessarily frame it as, the problem of falls. They framed it as the problem of decreased balance, right? So, we took that seriously. And then all the way through the research process, they helped design that, like how that was going to be, how our groups were going to meet. In research, we had to have a control group, what that control group would look like. And now with the implementation of the research, where we should do that, what times, what places, what's acceptable. We do have a group this summer that's going to meet outside because that's what they want to do given the current situation. And then they they talk to us all the way along about dissemination. So, what are we going to learn from this research? When are we going to get the results? What can we learn from what we've done already, the work in progress? So all of those pieces of the research process, we see ourselves doing in partnership with our community partners, and it's what makes it, right? Yeah.
Siobhan, that's a great answer. And it reminds me of what we heard consistently in the community regarding research. And I think Andy and maybe Makeda remember this. We constantly heard from community members, well, you come into our community, you do research on our children. If you're going to do research, we want to own the data. And that kind of scared us initially. But then the more you think about it, it was fundamentally true. They wanted to own the data. If you're going to research me, then how can I use that information to make my community better? That's simply what they were saying. And as we reflected on it, it was one of the most powerful perspective coming for the community, because partnership is all about mutual respect and mutual ownership for what you're doing together. And I will never forget how powerful those words were. So anyway, next.
Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Renee.
Hi, thanks. And that's an excellent question. And I'd say that with the latter, our biggest way we're doing differently is we are 100% service. We are there to serve the community. And for example, one of the things that happened, a lot of our Black and Brown medical students and undergrads and the various physicians that are working with the organization. During our last in-person meeting was February 2020. And then, as physicians, we just, dug into the hospital. I did more call last year than I did in residency. And, but the students were looking for something to do because they really wanted to help. And I was really, really proud of them. The students and the medical students and the undergrads of the latter, working with local community organizations, helped get over 6,000 masks to North Minneapolis prior to the mask mandate. They started that prior to the mask mandate. And it was like that, if you want to see a teacher cry, you watch the students excel. And they were doing the service. They were being there for their community. And it was more than giving back. They wanted to save people. And I honestly, from some of the outcomes, I think they did. But that's what the latter is about. It's about serving each other and helping each other grow. And the community is a really important part of that. And being there for them and being there with them is what we're looking to do with the latter.
Thank you so much, Dr. Critchlow. Well, let's move quickly because I know we're running out of time here, but my second question is really more specific to the impact of the pandemic on communities like this one and on projects like the specific ones that you are leading, which, as I said when we began, we're all chosen as exemplars of creativity, resilience during this great and challenging time that we've been under for the last 15 months or so. So I'd like for each of you to tell us how, given the backdrop of the global pandemic, and as I call it, the dual pandemic of the COVID-19 virus and civil unrest in places like North Minneapolis, and how that has changed your work, how your work has grown, how that has helped it to thrive over the past year or so. And so this time, Dr. Critchlow, you get to go again. We'll go in reverse order. So you'll have the first shot at this response or this question, and then we'll go with Siobhan, and then Mr. LaFleur and Brett, and then end with Tanya and Chalandra.
Yeah, well, as we all know, we're living in very interesting times, and the dual pandemic, structural racism, and the novel coronavirus really hit North Minneapolis in a blizzard. And what we looked to do is everyone tried to figure out where they could help. And as I said, for our organization, the physicians, we were pulled out to be frontline healthcare workers. But our, pre-doc and undergrads were like, okay, well, we're here and we're the latter and we're going to do something. I mentioned the masking project, as I said, started doing that prior to the statewide mandate. And one of the other things that happened was during the riots that were, the protests and riots that were impacting North Minneapolis, our clinic was one of the places that actually got looted, and 5 places on our immediate block were burned. We, as an organization, both the clinic and our students, they got together with the rest of the neighborhood. One of the biggest things they participated in was a resource fair in our parking lot, basically there to provide groceries and pharmaceutical and diapers and these kinds of things that took place for many days after the initial protests and riots. And it was really them living up to what we've been trying to teach each other. It's like, this is our responsibility, and we have a responsibility to this neighborhood, and that's for better or for worse. And there's a time they need us the most when it's times the hardest. So I was really proud of the unique response that the latter was able to do.
Fantastic, thank you. Yes.
Yeah. So because our research involves people who are 70 and older, with the first pandemic hitting of being COVID-19 and really affecting older people, were especially vulnerable. That became clear at the beginning. I think it was frightening for all of us, right? Because here we were meeting with groups of older people, and we were worried that we would be spreading, the COVID. And then what we really relied on was communicating. And because people were enrolled in the study or gave us permission to contact them, we could, and so the nurses and the research staff on our team kept in close touch with the participants individually. And that made a big difference, just helping them, kind of work through any challenges they were having, and then the other kind of bigger, more meta piece was our research was not based in a hospital or a clinic. It was in the community, but it was really important, right? It's around physical activity and helping people to keep moving and to stay connected. And so we felt that as soon as we could, we wanted to keep it going. And so we could legitimately stay connected with our participants. And we were able to do that through lots of communication and help from, our partners like UROC. So I would say, through both of those pandemics, I think where we came out stronger was just being very comfortable having regular communication and continuing to push forward and do what we can safely. And we have. So, and I'll just say, through the year, I don't know if it's through those efforts, but people continued to stay connected to us. They're in the study. Everyone who was involved continues to be involved. And so we see that as a good thing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Lafleur.
Yeah, for us at Tech, what really helped us go through that moment was flexibility. We are really flexible and good listeners. And Mr. Floyd was one of our students. And for me, it's for the first time someone so close was a victim in that kind of situation. It's heavily affected me somehow. And sometimes when we have class, if the students want to talk, we don't push them away, we listen to them. We let them speak what they have to say. Even though we know we have a class to cover and we have something to teach, that's what's in our agenda, but it's moment to listen. We listen to them, we let them speak up. And something I really learned for the past year of the pandemic, oftentimes people underestimate the work that tech does because it sounds really practical and technical, but you will know how heavy that work will be if someone has to attend a class via Zoom and the instructor ends up spending 2 hours telling somebody over the phone how to join Zoom. And for us, it's easy to just get the link and then enter the passcode if you have one and then join the class. But one of our instructors need to spend hours while other people waiting in the class to help that one person to access the class. So it was really a heavy year, but now we're getting along. So we do believe moving forward, the tech program will be hybrid, where we'll have some in-class courses, and we'll also continuing offering online classes for people who either can't attend in class or who's working full-time, who say, okay, I wanna learn IT classes, but I work full-time. So we're gonna give those people opportunity to access those resources after work hours, which is a great outcome from the pandemic.
Well, Sam, I'm glad you highlighted the fact that post-pandemic, there's still going to be a hybrid element to how you deliver your program. And I'm certain that probably for each and every one of you, this pandemic did force us to into a different mode that we wouldn't have gone to willingly. And I'm absolutely, probably pretty much convinced it allowed us to reach people in a broader context than we ever would have been otherwise. And as I think it was Renee said, able to kind of pivot and do things that were kind of tangential to mission, but yet critically needed by the community. And that was huge. And it's good to be that flexible. So thank you for that comment. Now I think we will go to Brett.
Yes, actually, to piggyback, I think that's the perfect segue for us. As we started to just realize two simple facts. One, that the challenges that were taking place in North Minneapolis were numerous. And once we started to have the conversations with each other, actually our effectiveness increased because we got on the Zoom. We were able to say in a very, very clear and real time, let's have the conversations, but let's get in, let's get out as quickly as possible. But we also started to expand the network and saying, literally living out the legacy of Dr. King. Everybody can be great because everybody can serve, and we're only doing it in 1 hour increments. So even Dr. Renee, we actually had some interlinking with the ladder with some of the students passing out the mask, in our 1 hour service. So there was some unintentional, amazing activities just because we were all able to see each other in real time and do what we had to do, get in and get out. The simple fact is that it forced us to really reimagine how to get things done efficiently, effectively, and equitably, and that the 3 E's actually can coexist. And I think that was an amazing, just epiphany for all of us to be able to say that this can work and that we can do things that is actually going to benefit us in real time. So I think that's the greatest lesson that we will continue to use. We will continue to use the model of our systems as it relates to our meetings, but also allowing for people to just do what they do best, which is to continue to connect with people and make things better.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brett. Tanya and then Chalandra.
Well, I echo pretty much what everyone else has mentioned. The pivot was like overnight for us, and I had to be real strategic in who to invite to be on the CLA committee, because everybody was eyeball deep in being efficient in how can I help? We need diapers, we need water, the cleanup. And so I totally understand where everybody's coming from, but that's what I had to do. We started working, and I mean the network and the people that I've met throughout this whole process and the things that I've learned being a part of the community in North Minneapolis. I'm from Rondo, but I've been in Minneapolis for 14 years on the north side. And talking about a village, I've seen the village come back together. And so that's what was so instrumental for me. But again, just being strategic in who I can invite to be on this committee, because I know every single one of those people were out on the ground doing the work, ensuring that community members had what they need. Technology and Zoom, something I've never even experienced. So it was a learning curve as well. Not only that, what's a camcorder? How does that work? So we had to pivot substantially. And I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Chalandra, Makeda, everybody, on this committee, on this project throughout that whole year. Manu Lewis is on the CLA. He works with the youth in terms of trying to keep the peace. How do you keep that peace with all that's going on? Everybody was talking about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it was just a plethora of those classes, but you had to be strategic in who you're going to listen to, who you're inviting in. And, is it just for the word, I just lost my chain of thought, but is it just a show for these organizations, or are they really showing up in the community, being instrumental in bringing this knowledge to the community members? And so that's how we had to pivot for this whole project.
Thank you, Tanya. Chalandra.
I'd like to echo what Tanya said. The murder of Mr. George Floyd, the social justice protests, and the trial all changed our timeline, but no one wanted the work to stop. So many members of our community-led advisory group indicated that they were inundated. They were so busy helping families deal with trauma, various forms of trauma, the exact topic we wanted to study, but that affected our timeline. So we learned how to be accommodating and adaptable. And we didn't try to find others to take the place of the busy advisory group members. If anything, it helped us realize that we were indeed working with some of the key people serving families in the community that we wanted to serve.
Fantastic. Well, all I can say is, wow, this has truly been amazing. And I certainly think that we could continue this conversation with all of you much longer, but I'm afraid we're running out of time for today's program. But so I think we need to end our questions here. But I just want to once again thank each and every one of you for your presentations and your thoughts and perspective today. And more critically important, I want to thank you for your commitment to this engagement model that we've established between the university and this vital community, and the transformational impact that it's having on lives and the trajectory of lives in the community. Because we did a deep dive in the data when we came up with this big idea, and the disparities were more acute in this community than any place else in the Twin Cities. And yeah, I wish we could start one in St. Paul and a few other places, but we had to start somewhere. And I can tell you, I could not be more proud of what we have built for a couple of reasons, not having to do as much because of my long history and legacy and what I tried to bring to bear in my leadership roles at the University of Minnesota. But it's a personal note here too that I mentioned earlier. I lived in North Minneapolis for 25 of the 34 and a half years I was in Minnesota. So that is truly my home as well. I lived at 1935 Washburn Avenue North, no more than about 5-6 blocks away from UROC. So I had a personal interest in this big model, big idea, because I used to drive by this location when it was a shopping mall and was just absolutely appalled at some of the things that were antithetical to the values of the community that was going on. So you can see I'm getting a little emotional here because this is absolutely transformative, folks. And then when you add what happened with Mr. Floyd's tragic death and all the other things that have transpired concurrent with COVID-19, I am very, very excited about this model and very, very excited about the great vision coming to fruition because of the strategic partners like yourself. And couldn't be more grateful, couldn't be more excited. And just want to thank again Andy Furco for his leadership of public engagement overall, but special thanks to Makeda and the entire team and the North Minneapolis and surrounding communities for their leadership and engagement around this valuable entity. So with that, I will end my part of this conversation, but not in my enthusiasm and the close eye that I will continue to watch UROC and to continue to celebrate and talk about this model as I've done for the last 10 years, even in the last 7 or so since I've been gone away from the university. Extremely proud of what we built together and can't wait to see what we will do next. And remember, I said we, whether you want me or not, I'm your adopted son that kind of, prodigal son that kind of wandered off. But this is something that I care greatly about, and I love each and every one of you. And thank you so much for allowing me to be part of this, Makeda. And I've always learned you got to have the boss to have the closing words. So Makeda, thank you so much. I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you for allowing me to share, but you're the boss. Thank you all thank you to all the panelists. You all know that I admire and appreciate each and every one of you and the way you do your work. Thank you, Andy, for always being supportive. Chancellor Jones, I think you already know that I am a great admirer of you in so many ways. And so while the first people I look to make proud are my parents, I grew up just a block away from UROC, and my community, but I'm always thinking about, would Dr. Jones be proud of what we have done? Would Chancellor Jones think we are still on the right track? And if he doesn't, we got to shift. So I thank you for always being supportive, and
You're good.
thank you. and President Gabel has been a strong supporter too, because with each changing administration, sometimes projects are no longer that important. And so I'm appreciative of that and appreciative to community. So I don't want to go on any longer, except that I am just extremely proud. And this is part one. Tonight, if you are anywhere near the Mississippi and the Lowry Bridge, it will be lit with maroon and gold. I'm extremely excited about that. And I thank the UROC team who has made a pandemic anniversary glorious despite our not being able to be in person. So with that, good night.
Thank you all.
Bye.